either. Everybody hates taxes, and I don't mean the state taxes, but I mean paying the government or your municipality or whoever it is every time again the money that they require of you for running the fire department, for running the water supply, for doing all kinds of stuff, and sometimes simply to have the money in order to pay their own salaries. You know, the right side of the political spectrum completely loads taxes because they want to have the money to buy the fuel for their production and the raw materials for their production in the factories. The left side, I think, really wants some strong government, but of course is also burdened by taxes. There's a solution to that. You can eliminate taxes altogether, and that is if you do a very simple thing, which is you understand that money is energy. In the current society we have an oil credit or carbon credit system where banks distribute credit that is only valuable as long as you can buy fossil fuels with it or energy. You know, you have to imagine what would your money be worth if you could not buy any fossil fuels with it, or whoever gets it could not buy any fossil fuel with it. It would be worthless because you cannot produce anything, you cannot drive a car with it, you cannot have a bakery, you can't fly anywhere, you can do nothing. So money has its value basically derived from the fact that it's fossil fuel. It's a fossil fuel credit. And that means that you have to constantly pay the taxes because the fossil fuel is burned, it's not renewable. So you pay your municipality for instance, so they can heat their offices. And they do that with fossil fuels, and that money is burned, so next year you have to pay again. And that's a very nice oil credit system or carbon credit system that has been going for years and years. But imagine that you pay off. If you address the money side of it, you will never pay it off, because as long as you keep dealing with money, you won't be solving the problem, which is that your municipality or your city or your state or your country needs energy to do what it is doing, to grow the crops, to feed the employees, to fly Air Force One, to drive around with tanks and rockets. All that stuff requires energy. As long as you address it by giving them money, you're not solving the problem that they require something completely different, which is not the money, it's energy. So take another approach and say, well, your municipality wants $1,000 a year from me. I can buy a solar panel installation that produces electricity that can be sold for $1,000 a year. Of course, that is more expensive than $1,000. I need more money to buy that solar panel installation. Let's say I need $10,000 to buy that installation, which is a reasonable price, I think, at this moment. I do that. I take out a loan. I have to pay off that loan, of course, with interest, because these banks, they want to keep hoarding that carbon credit money. But after 10 years of paying $1,000 to the bank to pay off the loan for the PV panel, I no longer have to pay any taxes. I live a tax-free existence because I gave the municipality a source of income that is comparable or equivalent to my tax payment. That's how you solve all tax burdens in society, and that's how you basically also connect the right-wing desire to not pay taxes with the left-wing desire to have a strong government, to have a government that protects you, because that's what the big quandary is about in society. You might even get a little conflict because the right wing is trying to eliminate all the protections for the health and safety of citizens. Because it hates taxes so much and because it wants to produce without any limit. Well, of course, that is very unwise, otherwise we still would have DDT, cigarettes and all kinds of other cancerous and polluting activities, including fossil fuel use. We want to eliminate that. If you, let's say, this whole way of thinking can eliminate all taxes around the world, it can eliminate all rents around the world. But of course, it's much easier to simply decide that you no longer want to acknowledge the fact that a bank holds a debt that represents burned fossil fuels. You basically say, well, you loaned me money against, well, an asset you knew was available in society, and of course that's a collusion between the banks and the oil companies, because the oil companies would not make that oil available in return for fiat currency. And of course, on a higher level, that's a collusion between the banks, the oil companies and the army, because the army is ultimately the branch of government or the force that makes sure that the fossil fuels remain available. And we all have seen that happen in Iraq. Basically the army, I don't think the army US army didn't go to Iraq to secure US oil. It basically went there to prevent China from getting the oil and getting a good deal from China, but that's a different story. If you want all that to stop, you have to take the whole thing at the same time. Say, well, energy companies, army and banks, listen up, we're going to use your fossil fuels to make renewable sources, to power the roboeconomic society, which has where you put the energy close to the producers, so that everything that you need, fertilizer, products, essential products, everything is produced at virtually no cost. A society in which you don't have to pay any taxes, because all the taxes are paid with energy that is supplied by a renewable energy source that you have paid off. And if you do that, it's of course going to be a much better world, because there's no longer this whole power structure and this whole hierarchy of banks and energy companies, and ultimately the Pentagon and the army that keeps control over everything. But this is my proposal. I think it will, let's say, if there's a presidential candidate that takes a stand and says, listen, I'm going to eliminate all taxes. No more tax for you, buddies. Sorry, you might have liked it. No corporate tax, no civil tax, no income tax, no tax. How? This is how I'm going to do it. Then I guess that that president is highly likely to be elected. And if you want to bring this about, if you think it's an interesting idea, because of course there's no limit to the number of renewable sources that can assist in this process of eliminating all taxes, then tell them, Mr. Governor, Mr. President candidate, Ms. Bachmann, why am I paying constantly the same taxes if you can invest it in renewables that then give the energy to have a productive and let's say wealthy economy? Because of course that energy is the fundamental stimulus for the economy, not the money. And I would never have to pay taxes anymore. Don't you want to be on that platform? You might be as crazy, batshit crazy, or stark raving mad and weird, but that would be a very good idea. You would certainly win with.